G'day, welcome to Lunch Money, your online and social media home for special situations, workouts and capital raising professionals. My name's Nick Samios. I am your Lunch Money host and I'm the fund manager and director here at Hermes Capital. We have a special guest today. We just had some IT problems and we're just trying to get him back. So he's logged out and logged back in again. But hopefully we'll have him back shortly. I'm going to soldier on regardless. I'm wondering whether or not you have been finding yourself yelling BS at the television a lot more lately than you have done in the past. And I think that's, I guess, everything that's going on at the moment. We're feeling more and more powerless, with the decisions that are being made. There's a data overload. We don't understand why things are happening necessarily. And this does create a lot of uncertainty. Now, I stumbled across a nice new term. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is a type of cognitive bias that causes people to overestimate their knowledge or ability, particularly in areas where they have little or no experience. Does that sound familiar to you? I'll show you what that looks like on a chart, this Dunning-Kruger effect. We're all suddenly experts on Pfizer and vaccines and COVID and what works and doesn't work and who's in the right and who's in the wrong. We're all experts about this. But if truth be known, our knowledge is very much on the left-hand side of that curve. I mean, how much do we really know? None of us are epidemiologists, but we do have a hell of a lot of conviction when we make these statements. Ditto. This week we've had the debacle in Afghanistan. And now all of a sudden we're all experts on military logistics, Middle Eastern strategy, special services and soldiering and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, so there's a lot of stuff that's going on in our world, these things that are happening internationally, the stuff that's happening with the pandemic. And we do have this information overload. We're not sure what's true. We're developing a distrust of information sources and a distrust of our leaders. That's making us a little bit angry in some cases because we are feeling as though we're losing control. And so we're surrounded in this complex world, lots of uncertainty. How do we deal with that? Well, today I have our special guest, and that is Bernard Desmidt. Bernard is an accomplished facilitator, coach, trainer, speaker, and author of Inside Out Leadership. There you go. G'day, Bernard. How are you?
Nick, well, thank you. And you?
Very well indeed. Now, I was saying to Bernard a bit earlier that the reason I had him on, he was on our live stream last year, you may recall, and he was certainly very interesting back then. And I've invited him back because his area of expertise is as a coach. He coaches CEOs and executives, and his expertise happens to be dealing in uncertainty. And so the world has kind of migrated into his ballywick, I think it's fair to say, with the goings on of the past 18, 24 months. So Bernard, before we get into our subject matter today, tell me what is it that's crossing your desk lately, and what are your clients most concerned about when you speak with them?
Yeah, I love that intro, Nick. It is a dare I say a gloomy reality, but the recurring theme, and with the executive teams I predominantly work with, is this reality now. Teaming together apart now mean the same thing, and how do we coordinate action together? How do we maintain the quality of working relationships? But I was with a CEO this morning in a coaching session, and there are three recurring concerns, and that is this heightened level of anxiety, and the sort of three F's, as I call them: fatigue, and this is more around emotional fatigue rather than physical fatigue; heightened levels of frustration. This lockdown round 2 is a very different beast. And there's a more concerning reality that's creeping in, and it's what I refer to as the mood of futility. this increasing sense of helplessness and hopelessness. Nothing I can do matters and is going to change this. And I render myself in that mood of resignation and futility. I don't see what's possible. And this is a debilitating mood when it creeps into organizations, through teams, through leaders.
Well, that's interesting. We spoke in the run up to this. I was saying to you that I think that a lot of people almost they want permission to fail. And I think that what you and I are going to do today, hopefully, is give them permission to win, if I can be as cliched as all of that. But just drilling down a little bit further on what you were just saying, we do have a graphic of locus of control, which I stole from the internet. I don't know where I knocked this off from, but this is kind of what pops into my mind when I hear you talking about particularly frustration and futility. You know, is that am I on the right track there?
Yeah, totally. And this is just a wonderful distinction, Nick. I mean, Stephen Covey's work, he talks about the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Wonderful. And I guess in times of uncertainty, and, you know, my invitation, we'll come back to this theme, is the sooner we give ourselves permission to accept the normality of uncertainty, we access a world of possibility. And living in the circle of concern means that I don't see what's possible. I'm preoccupied with what I cannot control and predict. And it's normal at times like this. You know, uncertainty is normal, and the only certainty is uncertainty. And when we accept that, we allow ourselves to engage in our circle of influence. And by that I mean we come from a mood of what's possible. And that's not being, you know, naive or in denial about the challenges. It means that I'm giving myself permission to accept what I cannot control and predict. When I accept what I cannot control and predict, it opens me up to a mood of curiosity. And in my mood of curiosity, my circle of influence expands. I see new possibilities.
Because I guess what Covey gets at is that he's saying that there's a small, you know, we start off with this small circle of things that we believe that we can control. And then there's this larger circle of things we feel like we can't control. And the mission in life, of course, is to try and expand that inner circle so there's more things we've got control about. But what's interesting from what you're saying is that there is that we're never going to get to the outer rim of the big circle is always going to be there. And you're saying that what we need to do is to embrace that and turn that into curiosity. Like we'll become curious about it.
Absolutely. If we think about this, you know, when I do not accept what I cannot control and predict, it elicits in me a mood of anxiety. I'm preoccupied with believing I'm going to come to harm and not be able to deal with what I cannot control and predict. When I accept what I cannot control and predict, I then open myself up to move into a mood of wonder and curiosity. And this is so critical in times of uncertainty.
Well, now tell me, go on. Sorry.
No, you know, we always have choice. And
now, sorry, I interrupted you again.
No. You.
I do want to know whose head that is you have behind you. That you've got a little. What's that statue behind you? Yeah.
This could take up the whole time we have together.
This is okay.
This is a most fascinating story.
Yep.
My beloved mother, who is no longer with us, 50 years ago, bought that statue and that bust. And I said to her, Mom, when you plop your clogs, she's mine.
Right.
And had no idea of who she is, who the artist was. The only thing my beloved and two children brought to Australia was that bust.
Wow.
And Nick, cut another long story short, I was in my home office and my neighbor, who's an eccentric person, walked into my office and looked at that bust and said, "That's Elizabeth." And I said, "What?" And she, I said, "Yeah, right, that's Elizabeth." What do you mean that's Elizabeth? And she was also South African. She lived on a farm in the Free State, Bloemfontein. And she said, "No, that Elizabeth worked on my farm. And the sculptor is Maureen Quinn, my sister-in-law."
You're kidding.
Nick,
No way. No
Nick,
way. I refuse to believe it.
Nick, all of that is true.
Wow.
And Maureen Quinn is a world famous sculptor. She was commissioned by the University of Sydney
Wow.
to prepare a bust of Nelson Mandela.
Wow. Wow. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to fold that back into our story, because firstly, that is just proof positive that we live in a simulation, but we'll leave that for another time. But you know, I do wonder whether or not having that artifact is a connection, you know, I guess, you know, to a relationship that, you know, is this something that helps us to navigate, you know, these crazy sorts of times, you know, where we are all apart, you know, and you know, I just wonder if we can somehow magically fold that into our topic here today.
No, absolutely. I mean, and she's never not looking over me. But I mean, if we think about this, if we distill this to its essence, whether we're talking about leaders individually or leaders collectively as teams, we rise and fall based on the quality of our working relationships. And right now, and this is a bigger subject. I stand on the shoulders of giants in this respect, one of which is Gloria Kelly, a preeminent sociologist, who gave us the 8 elements of effective relationships. And I've adapted this model, but it's absolutely essential that we look to these 8 elements, particularly at times like this, where teaming apart, our sense of belonging, our sense of identity has been severely challenged. The feelings of loneliness and isolation are significant.
Well, look, let me just pull you back to something before I sort of started that whole chain. You said about becoming curious right. And let's sort of bring that to a grounded, you know, like we are currently now. I didn't watch the Doom conference at 11 o'clock today. I've got to wean myself off that, you know, how many cases and how many deaths. You know, apparently today they've brought in new restrictions, certain suburbs and areas in New South Wales. We've got viewers all over the country. We've got listeners all over the world, just by the way. But we you know, we're now, some areas are, there's going to be a curfew, for heaven's sakes, right? Now, you know, how do we become curious? You know, just sort of bring that back to the workplace. You know,
how do we become curious? Beautiful question, Nick. I just want to bring you back to the domains of human existence. Now, just bear with me on this. We exist in 3 domains, and the interdependence between these domains manifest in what I call, we refer to as our way of being. And all we preoccupied with is living a fulfilled way of being. And these 3 domains we exist in is language, mood, and body. We never not in language. We think, we speak, we act, and we listen in language. We never not in mood. If we think about this, we are never not, and I make a distinction between moods and emotions. Emotions are fleeting, but both are predispositions for behavior. So everything we do or not do, or everything we say, is because of the mood we're in. And there's 6, and I stand again on the shoulders of giants, one of which, Alan Seeler, my teacher, who gave us the 6 moods of life, but like the 3 colors.
Right.
And And life puts us in a mood. We cannot control our mood. We can only manage our mood. There's a
Right.
COVID mood. There's a COVID mood.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
What is possible? What is possible is when we observe the mood we're in may not be serving us. We have the capacity to shift and manage our mood. And again, I just want to come back to these two predominant moods. When we assess what we cannot control and predict, and I think it's so important to understand this point. When I do not accept what I cannot control and predict, when I do not accept that, I open myself up to a mood of anxiety. When I do not accept what I cannot control and predict. When I look to uncertainty as abnormal. Does that distinguish?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm very interested by what you say, because I know myself personally.
Yeah.
Now, I know that there's some way of just flipping the switch on this. I haven't quite discovered it yet, and maybe I'm going to discover it with you here, that just flipping that outlook. And I even say to my kids, you know, I've got 2 young adult boys, so I'm saying, you know what, we've got to find a way that I think I was saying to you the other day, you know, the Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time, which is a great Harvard Business Review article, talks about the long lens. And the long lens is viewing your situation and saying, what will it look like now in the future? Like in 10 years' time, when we look back on this, what are we going to see that maybe we missed, you know, or what are we missing? And I just wonder whether or not that's a way of finding that way of flipping that. But just reiterate what you said. So it's a matter of I mean, maybe this mood flipping thing is going from the anxiety. So just reinstate that point.
So if we accept, and again, one of the phenomenon of humankind and we never not in assessment. We are always in assessment of ourselves and others. We always in belief or in opinion making assumptions. And one of the categories of assumptions that we live in is what we cannot control and predict. And then there's a choice we come to. We either accept that or we do not accept that. We either accept what we cannot control and predict, or we do not accept it. When we do not accept it, in other words, what I'm preoccupied in is believing that I have to be in control and be able to predict what's happening around me. And when I do not accept that, I elicit in me a mood of anxiety. I'm preoccupied then in believing I'm going to come to harm. I'm not going to be able to cope with all that's happening around me. When I accept, when I accept what I cannot control and predict, it elicits in me. I cannot control and predict how long this COVID's going to go on for. I cannot control and predict for how long I'm not going to be with my clients face to face. Now, I can sit here and thinking this is wrong. My business is stuffed. This is the end of me. Or I can say, hold it. I accept. There's nothing I can do about that. Now, what may be possible? I accept I can do nothing about what I cannot control and predict about me being able to get onto a plane to go to Melbourne to be with clients. So when I accept what I cannot control and predict, I allow myself to move into a mood of curiosity that opens up to me a world of possibility.
Right. Okay. I mean, that is very interesting. The way that you put that. Yeah.
You know, Nick, there are 3 questions I'm inviting everyone stay in at the moment. And that is to say, what mood am I in?
Yep.
And don't judge yourself saying it's wrong for me to feel frustrated or angry, annoyed, or no. Just observe it. Just observe it. Not don't come in judgment. What mood am I in? The second question is, how may this mood serve me? And the third question is, what mood would better serve me?
Right.
I'm never not in those 3 questions. And
well,
I mean,
Well, let me ask you, okay, so what mood am I in? How is that serving me?
How does this mood serve me? You know,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
mood of frustration, this mood of resignation, how's it
yeah,
serving me?
yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well, look,
yeah,
I mean, so there's two things I want to get to. So one is we're talking about on a personal, individual level here, and I want to sort of see how this sort of then manifests itself in more productive teams that are disparate by the fact that we're all working from home.
yeah.
But it strikes me that one does need to have a level of self-awareness. I mean, it's one of the problems is, of course, I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking about the difference, I think, between neurotic and psychotic. Neurotic people think that everything's wrong with them, and psychotic people think there's nothing wrong with them. It's the rest of the world, and that's why they've got to go on a killing spree. But at least with a neurotic person, you can cure them or you can work on them because at least they recognize it's them.
Yeah.
But it's how if and I use those terms sort of lightheartedly. But how do you know? How can you check in on yourself to make sure you've got the appropriate level of awareness?
Yeah, there's, I wish I had the answer, Nick, is my response. I wish I had the answer. However, I've got a perspective on this. And that is, so much of our life at the moment, there's this mood we call hysterical industriousness.
Hysterical industriousness. Is that what you just said?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, go on. Hysterical industriousness. Okay.
And this is this mood of busyness. When I ask execs, how things going? Just so busy, just so busy. And then I ask, well, what are you achieving? What are you achieving? And so often, believe it or not, that second question is a lot harder to answer. And
well, can I just interject one moment there, Bernard? I do have a very solid answer on how people can be a lot more positive on that, and that is firstly by asking us a question and having the possibility of winning this gorgeous limited edition lunch money mug for anybody who asks a question. And it's got, as you can see, the calming. That's a special blue that psychologists have tested around the world, and it does have you a calming influence and put you in that place where you have a better level of self-awareness. So I just thought I'd tell you about that tool, Bernard. Now I've interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, Nick, if there are any questions from the audience, I think please. I'm so happy to take them, and if they got the chat facility, please let's.
They do have the chat facility. They're often very shy, and very often they finally summons up the courage after we've logged off. But we'll see how we go today. Anyway, so so we were talking about this. You had a perspective on gauging self-awareness and.
Yeah, and I think the capacity we have to be more mindful, to be more attentive, to be present, and one doesn't have to be a masterful meditator at this. I think it's just giving oneself permission to many times of the day just to stop and say, right, what's happening for me? Why am I believing this? Why am I assuming this? Why am I feeling this? What's happening for me that I'm feeling the way I am? And we think about this. In that moment, there is only certainty. There is only certainty. And just stopping and giving ourselves a chance to observe and be mindful, be present. For what sake am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And for what sake am I believing? Am I assessing? Am I assuming what I am? And what would be a different mood? What might be a different assessment that I could be holding? I was working with an exec yesterday who has just been caught up in this narrative that she's not adding value to nothing, to no one.
Right.
And that's the story. And what she didn't realize is she's become her thoughts. We are not our thoughts. We just have thoughts. We're not our thoughts. We're not our moods. You know, it's important. It's not that I'm angry. No. How can I be angry? I'm in an angry mood. And after the coaching, what she came, we came to a declaration. In other words, a statement of truth that she's giving herself permission to hold, and that is that I do add value in what I do, and I do add value to those I care about. And she was blind in these times of uncertainty. She had become her narrative. I am not adding value to no one.
Right. So does that become well? That's interesting, because you said that there's three domains: language, mood, and body. And I suppose that you're certainly talking about the language domain there. Let's get into then. Okay, that's the individual. How do we then look at this from a team perspective? You know, because we are managing in teams.
No, this is, you can imagine how amplified this is when we bring these perspectives about what it means to be human, when we look at these from a collective perspective. I think, you know, one of the distinctions, and it is such an important distinction, this, Nick, and whenever I commence work with an executive leadership team, I often find they refer to themselves interchangeably as a group and as a team. And there's a huge and significant distinction between a group and a team. And I want to put it to you now. We know, and as John Cotter said, you know, in every team there's a group, but not every group's a team.
Right.
And you know, at these times now, you know, how we teaming together and apart to be clear on the mandate we have as a team. Groups have no mandate. They determine their mandate. Teams have a mandate they commission to by their stakeholders.
So you've made that distinction between groups and teams. And I was saying earlier, you know, we do live in this world where, you know, we just don't know what to believe anymore. Like I say, you know, I get the data dump in Sydney. I'm in Sydney, and we get the data dump of all the hotspots. Well, you know, 4 weeks ago, it was interesting to see. All right, listen, Peter Ellis. He wants to know if he gets a second mug. Are we going to award Peter Ellis a second mug? I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you, Peter. I am going to get these caps made up. So by the time, you'll get yourself a lunch money cap, okay? Peter's been on the show and fantastic. So I very much appreciate your input and your support. So you know, and you can't even keep track of the data anymore. You can't even keep track of the data. But even then, because our leaders are they're you know, you can criticize what they're doing, but they're doing this for the first time. I don't want to support them, because if you could sit here when we're not live, I can assure you that I rubbish just about everybody all the time. But I just wonder whether or not this is undermining the confidence in leadership generally. So when you're talking about the difference between a team and a group, and I understand what you're saying is, you know, that team has a collective purpose that they're all buying into. I'm not sure if those are exactly your words, but that's what you're saying. So how do we make sure that, you know, this mood of COVID, where I don't know if it's just me or if it's people generally, certainly the people I speak to have got this distrust of information and a distrust and this feeling of disconnect. How do we make sure that's not translating? Or how do I make sure that my own team isn't distrusting me? You know, they're not sure what the Prime Minister and the Premier is saying. Does this sort of filter down to the other leaders, you know, at the workplace level?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to this perspective, Nick, and I'm inviting we believe this, hold this unto, you know, as the truth. Believe this is true, and that is that leaders and teams rise and fall on the quality of their working relationships. And right now, you know, so if I may just share with you again the distinctions I make and leverage the work of Gloria Kelly in this regard, that these eight elements, see them as plates spinning on a dial. They don't have to be spinning in the same velocity, but now more than ever before, when we teaming together apart, the 8 elements have to be in momentum, and they are, and we know what they are. That they are trust, respect, and by respect I mean not just the personal, the respect we afford each other's perspectives, irrespective of how similar or different they are to our own. The mood, what's the collective mood? And declaring a collective mood, the team is going to move collectively in. The other element, which is so critical, is, again, part of our human phenomenon. If we think about this, we are never not in concern. We're never not thinking, speaking, listening, acting from what's important to us that could be going better. Right now, critical that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share what our concerns are, and thereby make it safe for others to share what their concerns are.
Can I just stop you on that word? I just want to stop on that word share for a moment.
Yes.
And just remind people that one thing they must do is share, like, or subscribe to this live stream, whether or not it's on Facebook, YouTube, or of course LinkedIn. Share it with your team, and you'll have a lot less to be concerned about. Sorry, I've interrupted you again there, Bernard, but I have to get my little plugs in.
No, fantastic. So again, so if we think about these 8 elements: trust, respect, concerns, mood, appreciation, and I make a distinction here between recognition and appreciation right now. And if we think about this, we recognize others for what they do, we appreciate them for who they are. Right now, to what extent do others feel appreciated by us? And if we think about those 5 elements, I'll come to the other 3. Those 5 elements: trust, respect, concerns, mood, appreciation, all impact our what we refer to as our way of being together.
That's interesting. I guess because we are not in the office, it's very, I imagine it could be very easy. I've got a small team, but I can imagine it's very easy to, for members of the team to be neglected altogether because they're out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely.
Now, one thing that I insist on, I mean, we've got Microsoft Teams in our place, and I think it drives my staff a little bit crazy that I don't just ring them up, but I insist on seeing them, because I want to try and maintain. So I'm forever video calling them. I don't just call them, I video call them, because I do want to have that some level of connection as best as we possibly can. And I just feel as though, I just think that it's bad for your psychology just to be either literally or metaphorically working in the dark. You know what I mean?
So, and Nick, and these are simple things because they in our knowing. Nothing what I've shared now is not in our knowing. It's in this mood of hysterical industriousness. We're not stopping to access the depth of our knowing. I was with this exec team virtually, and we said, okay, round the table, we're going to take 2 minutes, and we're going to have it. Each is going to have a turn on this, but for 2 minutes, every other team member is just going to share what they appreciate about Johnny, then move on to Mary, and just 2 minutes of appreciation, and never before have they expressed what they appreciate about each other. Never.
Wow.
And they had the good intentions. They know clearly what they appreciate about, but appreciation is not an intention, it's an expression.
Yeah, that's very. Look, I mean, gee, we could go on to a whole bunch of deeper levels there because there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that we think doesn't need saying, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh my God.
Let's not go there. You'll end up. I'll end up on the couch and staring at the ceiling and crying or something. But what I wanted to do, because the clock's running down. Now, I think you've got three more of Gloria Kelly's points to get to.
Yes. So if we look at the 5 elements of relationships that represent our way of being together: trust, respect, moods, appreciation, concerns. Our way of doing together is the quality of our conversations, the extent to which we are aligned, and the 8th element is how are we coordinating action together. And right now, I'm never failed to be amazed, Nick. I ask execs how much of their time is spent in conversation, and invariably I get 80%.
Yeah.
And then I ask, what percentage of those conversations are effective? And by effective conversation, I mean what is important be said is said, how it's said and how it's understood are aligned, and the outcome of the conversation is achieved, whether it's sharing, informing, deciding. They turn around and tell me, never before have I had more than, on average, 50% of our conversations are effective. Now, let's just work this out. If 80% of our time, let's assume a 50-hour week, 80% of our time is spent in conversation and 50% are effective, we are in effect generating 2 days of waste.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's interesting. These days, as you can see, I'm a little bit of an older generation, the more grey hair than I care for. When I say I have to be, I feel as though, particularly when I'm talking to the people in their 20s and what have you, that when I say conversation, I have to be very clear and say what I mean by that is you're on the phone, or particularly when we're talking with people who aren't in the office. Obviously, you're on the phone. And a conversation isn't a chat or an email. That's not a conversation. A conversation is where we're speaking words and we're using our ears and all that sort of stuff. It's not,
Nick. And here's the thing: if I want to leave your listeners with one thing, in these times of uncertainty, and when we come, let me take a step back. When we talk about conversations, there are only 2 elements to a conversation. It is about advocating. It's dialogue. So a dialogue is advocating what I believe, respecting my truth. It's not the truth. Advocating what I believe and inquiring into what the others believe or the other's perspective. And here's the thing: in times of uncertainty and certainty, but more so uncertainty, always advocate as if you are right, and always inquire as if you are wrong.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I have encountered that advocacy inquiry thing, in management school years ago. I think there's a 2x2 matrix, but that's very interesting what you say there about advocating as though you're right and inquiring as if you're wrong. We are running out of time. So I wanted to sort of finish up by just asking you, I mean, what's your typical client profile? Yeah, what are they? Professional firms? Are they corporations?
So I work, across all sectors. Financial services, the construction industry is the industry that I work most in. I don't have an engineering background, but that's very interesting. It's professional services, IT. Retail, that's a fascinating sector at the moment.
And large, small, in between.
Large, small. So in the construction sector, I go from multi-billion to 30 million in the entire vertical.
Okay.
So
fantastic.
Yeah, half of my time would be spent, with executive teams and executive coaching. Yeah.
All right. Well, most of our viewers and listeners are professionals, accountants, lawyers, or business advisors of one form or another. And if they want to get in touch with you, you've got a website.
Yeah. Wonderful. www.bernarddesmidt.com.
Fantastic. And of course, there'll be a link to that in our in the socials where you saw this program. All right. Well, look, I think we'll just about wrap it up. I'll give you one last sort of parting thought or comment.
Yeah, maybe I want to share what I came across. Joel Peterson, the chairman of Blue Jet Airlines, and a preeminent leader, revered by many, and he was asked, what does he put his leadership down to? And he said, his greatest lesson and the habit he has cultivated is to always lead by, and what he referred to as to wait, WAIT, and always be asking himself, why am I talking? And we talk for two reasons: to be understood or to understand. And in times of uncertainty, I just invite, do more waiting. Always be asking yourself, why am I talking? What's important I understand, and what's important for others to understand.
All right. Well, that's a great note to finish up on. I'm really glad that we asked you to come on, and I'm really grateful that you made the time for us. Very much appreciated. It's been a fascinating discussion. We've got about another 100 talking points we could get to, but we are out of time. So we will get you back again someday, Bernard. Thank you so much on behalf of our audience. Really appreciate it.
And Nick, may I express appreciation for the great work you're doing. I understand this is episode 65, and you have not missed a beat. So thank you for bringing, some wonderful insights and learning to us all.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm very grateful. All right, Bernard, thank you very much. And thank you very much to our viewers and listeners and podcast downloaders. We'll talk to you again, do it all again next week. Cheers.